terrible sound. Okay. Yeah, welcome to all of you. It's great to have all of you here with you. So many people that I could not even see them on one screen. That's a very good news. Please allow me to welcome you on behalf of Teresa as well. I hope she will zoom in very soon. Zoom in soon. Let me give you a short sort of 3 minutes, maybe sort of looking back, because we have quite a few new people here. This is the 4th online session that we are conducting. I think what we did, we were sort of finding and framing topics and building trust with each other to work together. What is sometimes not easy if the people are changing, but on the long run, I'm very, very confident. So we decided the topics we want to work with, we want to proceed, we want to create a framing that should be more or less sort of beneficial for all of you. So in the last session, it was we were sort of resonating about some core questions that were emerging. Let me just briefly share this with you. The first one was, how do our institutions change? The second was more or less, how are the people, who are the people we want to talk to? Talking means not only speak to, but also listening to, or collaborate, or doing, or making, actually, because we want to extend our reach. What are the main topics we need to bring on the agenda, from the small scale topics up to the sort of global topics, from climate crisis to democracy and biodiversity? How to best connect with people, actually, and this goes to what you just mentioned, Annette, how to best connect with people and institutions, actually, to have an impact, actually, and what's the language that we need to speak. And what are the competencies? And this is what Albert will talk about a little bit today, or we can talk about today. And how are the values we create are changing, and how is our impact changing? Last time also we were talking about these nice KPIs that some of us have to struggle with. I think Wolfgang brought it up, and we came up with sort of different terminology. So how are our values changing? What is our impact that we can have? And how is this measured actually? So we said, okay, we are proceeding to innovate and design futures to address major and systemic problems, to work transdisciplinary. And as agents of change, we need to reflect transition and transformation. So this is why we're here today, why we invited some experts with some expertise to give a very short 7, 8, 9 minutes talk, so that we have more or less 1 hour where we can listen to the different sort of positions. And I just welcome Hara John together with Christy Davis from Singapore. I want to welcome Lolita Dutta with her colleague from UID in India. I want to welcome Leticia Castro from the Centro Brasil Design or Diseño, I don't know, CBD. Annette Flink with her colleague Tokam from Golding, and Albert Fuster from Barcelona. We will sort of briefly introduce you once you're going to talk. And I think I want to start with a short conversation with Hara John. I don't know whether I pronounce it right. Coming from fashion design to collaborative design and disruptive approaches on interdisciplinary design. Now you're the or one of the connecting links between LaSalle and Lien Centre. So therefore, I'm very happy to have Christy Davis here, the director of the LSEI, with us today to share with us their perspectives on the role of design in social innovation project, because we figured out that many things about innovation are about social innovation when we're talking about that. So we're very happy to sort of hear a little bit how your sort of collaborations and your thoughts are working, Hara.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. If I can share screen.
Yeah, of course.
Do that really quickly. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. So thank you for having us. We're actually very excited to be sharing with you today. My name is Hara John. I am one of the lecturers at LaSalle College of the Arts in Singapore. I'm currently teaching in the MA Design program, and today I'm joined by Christy Davis, who is the Executive Director at the Leon Center for Social Innovation at Singapore Management University. So over the past few years, I've been very fortunate to be able to work quite closely with the Leon Center. And together we have developed different programs, workshops, seminars, and all sorts of different types of master classes around the role of design and social innovation. So today we wanted to share with you a recent pilot that we have launched. It's like a motorcycle in the background. Okay. A recent pilot that we have launched between our two institutions, and the project is titled Thirsty for Change. So Christy will walk us through a little bit of the background of this project.
Great. So thank you so much, Hara, and hello, everyone. It's great to be here. So a question I have for all of you, first of all, especially for those of you who are not in Asia, is do you know what bubble tea is? Bubble tea. Can I just have, can you put your hands up if you do not know what bubble tea is? Bubble tea. So I've got a couple of hands. All right, so that means most of you are familiar with bubble tea. So bubble tea in Asia especially it's a beloved beverage, really. It's a cold tea drink with chewy tapioca balls, they're called pearls. Terribly popular. It's a big, big business. And bubble tea also produces an amazing amount of plastic packaging. So the sustainability issues around bubble tea, they're multifaceted. Some of them are quite hidden, and they're numerous. And so LaSalle, Hara, and my team, we looked at what could we do to actually pull our students together, management students and design students, undergraduate and graduate students, and see what would happen if we created a cross-disciplinary research-led design practice that helped them to explore perhaps solutions for some of the bubble tea, first to identify some of the issues, and then to consider what might some solutions be to tackle those by working together. So it was a very unique exchange, and it's produced some really interesting conversations. And Hara is going to actually then take us through what the steps were and what the students did, and I'll circle back around with you a little bit later. So that's an introduction to our unique collaboration. So Hara, back to you.
Thank you, Christy. So just to give you a little briefing about how the project came about, I think Christy and I initially met to discuss this at the end of December in 2019. We very quickly and worked really quickly to kind of launch this in January of 2020. And I do think one of the reasons why it was feasible, given the very short lead time, is the fact that we had a very small group of students working together. So we invited 3 of our MA design students who were just joining LaSalle for their first semester of study. And then 2 students from Singapore Management University who were from the departments of business and social sciences. So the 5 of them worked together. We had a 6-week workshop. Again, this workshop was not designed for this collaboration. It's actually part of the MA design curriculum. So all 5 of them joined that workshop. They developed a microsite where they were able to sort of document the process. All of the weeks of the workshop were then kind of uploaded onto the microsite. I met them towards the end of the collaboration again for an open lab session where we sat and we kind of ideated about ways of translating some abstract ideas into a more tangible solution. The initial ambition of this project was really to have a public exhibition. So I believe some of the students had contacted major bubble tea retailers who were really interested in what we were doing. And so we wanted to showcase some of the outcomes and propose to them within the remit of maybe an R&D project of how we could then bring them in as a third partner, as an industry partner at the end of the collaboration. So if we think about the objectives of the project, they're quite straightforward. We wanted students to explore different forms of data visualization. We also wanted them to probe really deeply into examining the issue of bubble tea as both a cultural and social phenomenon. But the one thing that we did stress was the nature of collaboration. So we really emphasized how important it is for them to be able to collaborate across the disciplines and given their very different backgrounds. So we trained them in smartphone videography and also mapping techniques for them to be able to document the journey. We left it intentionally very open-ended, and I think it was also in consideration of the two undergraduate students because for them, this was entirely extracurricular. I believe they were doing their internships with the Leon Center at the time, and so therefore, for them, it was just an extra workload on top of their very heavy course load. So we gave them some possible directions to look at. What was interesting is all 5 of them explore design as intervention. So they wanted to look at small scale interventions that when adopted collectively within a community can begin to trigger and translate into larger impacts. So the collaboration was very organic in the way that it developed. I think they developed quite a nice dynamic between them. I think the SMU students probably were very apprehensive in the beginning of kind of the daunting prospect of coming into a different institution, working in an MA design program, working alongside seasoned and professional designers. Some of our MA students, this is their second MA, so they're quite mature in that sense. So very naturally, they took on the roles of mentor and mentee, and it allowed for a very nice sort of cross-pollination of ideas. When I finally met them around 4 months into the project, it was actually quite a very interesting conversation that we had. So they said that in order for them to tackle the issue of bubble tea, you also need to look bigger at the issue of single-use plastics, which then is also an issue that is larger and looking at the problem of sustainability. But within all of that, they said, in Singapore, we have this problem of belonging to a culture of excess. So we kind of developed a bit of dialogue and really unpacked what is the culture of excess. We looked at 4 different pillars, 4 themes of awareness, behavior, lifestyle, and re-education. So these are the areas that we felt that could be redesigned. So as I mentioned earlier, our early ambition was to have a public exhibition. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and Singapore, like many other places around the world, we went into a lockdown, and we were locked down for quite a while, I believe. So the one benefit of working with the Leon Center is that they have a flagship content platform called Social Space Magazine. So the SMU students, the 2 of them collaborated on writing a series of articles about their journey in this project. And it was really interesting because the 2 of them are not design trained, but they were beginning to use the terminology like designers. They were talking about engaging in a design workshop, the ways that they were able to go through a design process, and then how that led to design-led solutions as well. From the perspective of the design program and the masters that I teach in, we were very fortunate that one of our MA students, Jael Schroff, was able to do a 1-month residency with the Leon Center during the summer. She was mentored by the research staff, and so therefore she was able to contribute these 2 articles, which really helped in shaping her own research area, which is looking at sustainable systems and the circular economy. So at the end of this, Christy and I kind of regrouped, we sat together, and I think the danger of the 2 of us coming together is we have many, many ideas and lots of things to talk about. But we were very adamant that it was really important that we pave a way forward, but that we do this in a really pragmatic way. So we started to raise some questions of what are the 4 areas that we need to address. So the first thing is, how do we define our problem spaces? And I think the pandemic, especially in Singapore, uncovered a lot of very uncomfortable social issues. And it raises the question when we begin to scan the landscape of social problems in Singapore, what takes precedence? And how do we begin to order the problems that we tackle? Is there a way that one leads to the next? And how do we do that in a very systematic manner? So I think this requires a lot of collective thinking. It also requires more collaborative dialogue to occur. The second point is really highlighting the role of design. I actually think that designers need to take the lead on this. So designers in practice, I think, are very good at execution, are very good at proposing solutions. But where design tends to lack a little bit is in formalizing process and formalizing practice. So what are the different tools that we can create? Are they things that might be models that or frameworks that can be replicated across disciplines in various contexts of use? But also, what are ways that we can test these models and tools in real time with communities and across different levels of interaction? The third thing is language. And Christy and I think when we were discussing this, we said in everyday jargon, we use so many of these buzzwords that seem to come and go. And with the buzzwords, what happens is that the more we use them, they tend to sort of dilute in the value because the meaning and significance tends to get lost. So is there a way that we can invite the leaders of the public, private, and social sectors to come together that collectively we begin establishing a more appropriate terminology so that we can enhance future discourses? And then finally, this was really a call to action. To say, what are the things that we can actually do? What are things that we can actually develop to sort of create this idea of a generative culture and a generative society? And we felt that this was one way in which we really strengthen our commitment to community, but also the ways that we look at and tackle social issues. So as we begin to transition from our current norm and into this idea of a post-pandemic norm, we felt one thing that needed to be clearly outlined, especially in the case of Singapore and the region of Southeast Asia, is a look at 21st century complexity. So Christy will walk us through this final slide.
Yeah, and actually it's really kind of a concluding slide for us, but it's actually just, it's a springboard for kind of the next steps forward for us. So, I mean, obviously, as we all know, complexity is a defining feature of the 21st century. It's also, of course, called the information age. But we've moved from an industrial economy to a knowledge economy. And I think for me, sometimes I get caught where I'm still thinking almost like industrial age. So we really need to think about how our skills are really focused on a service economy, and the systems of consumption and production they're based on intellectual capital now. So that means then that even for those of us that are really aware of this, there's a lot of people that haven't thought about this at all, and all of a sudden we're kind of caught out. So we really need to encourage a mindset shift where systems-oriented thinking and approaches can encourage not just thoughtful, but really empathetic actions. So I think we found that bringing students together from both LaSalle from a design background and from SMU, Singapore Management University from a management background, really was a great step to look at challenges in really fresh ways. And then they had the opportunity to design and co-create kind of thoughtful actions that could encourage both social and environmental sustainability. So I think we're actually really encouraged with this pilot program. And I know we certainly are on Lean Center side. It was just a pleasure to work with Hara, and I learned so much myself. I know our students did. So we're really keen to tackle 21st century complexity together by putting management disciplines and design disciplines together and see how we can pool those resources and strengths to tackle some of the challenges that we have facing us. So I'll end there. So Hara, back to you. Thanks for the chance to partner with you on this.
Thank you, Christy. So that's it for us. If you have any questions about it, please do check out socialspacemag.org. And that's where you can sort of see the documentation of this entire journey. And please do contact us if you have any further questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that from my side as well. I think it was very impressive what you achieved, and I think it's good to look on one project. I wouldn't say in detail, but in that detail, and I think you brought very well sort of some core question up to the agenda. I think we will have some discussion afterwards, sort of to be able to connect all the different sort of positions, because I think there will be some references if you all agree. I took some notes. You're free to also come up with some questions in the chat. Aguinaldo already did, so we can sort of collect them a bit. Okay, so I have to change the order a little bit because we are a little bit behind schedule, and one of our guests, Carsten from Coding, has to leave a bit earlier. So I would kindly ask Annette and Carsten to come up with their presentation right now, coming from Coding School of Design, Coding Design School, and sorry, put it like this. And also talking about their expertise in industry collaboration, but from inside the university as well. So Annette, the screen is yours, or the stage is yours, or the mic is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yes, I would just briefly give a short introduction to the school, and then I will leave the floor to Carsten. Yeah, my name is Annette Flink. I come from Design School Kolding, which is located in the south part of Denmark. We say probably the smallest university in the world, with 350 students in total. We train both in bachelor's and master's level and in PhD. We have a kind of long tradition for, you can say, for learning by doing, and therefore we have a strong partnership with companies and have had that for all the 50 years that we have existed. So we have we do collaboration, but we also teach companies in order to help them to kind of transform and use design methodologies in their processes within their companies. And the project that Carsten will tell about is exactly that, where we teach companies how to navigate in this chaos of where they can use design thinking as a tool for their development. So Carsten, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. Hope you can hear me. I'm Carsten Bæk, and I've been the project manager for a project called Design to Innovate, which has lasted we have had the last 8 years in the school. And I started back in 2012, starting up the whole project. And the background is, as Annette said, that we are practicing cooperation with companies a lot in the school. But until then, it was mainly the big corporations like Lego or the shoe manufacturer Eco and other big Danish companies that we've been cooperated with. And we have a very good cooperation with them. And the good thing is that they know about design, they know what design thinking is, and they have a lot of designers inside their different department, and they also take internships from our school, and so they know what design thinking is about. The thing is just that more than 90% of the companies in Denmark are small and medium-sized companies, which means companies with less than 250 employees. And most of those companies have until now had the impression that design is mainly about shaping. It's about putting the right shape and form to a product, or making your homepage or nice. So we have had very little cooperation with these companies, and they had a very and they were not reluctant to hire our students or students from our school, because they couldn't see that they needed a designer and they didn't know how to employ them and what designers could do for them. Started off with by and we did it, but we were the main contributor to the part of the program I'm going to tell about. So what we simply did is that we offered a 6-day course, crash course in design for employees from the companies, so they could get a couple of employees into the course. So we made kind of two ways or two types of course. The one was for normally employees in the company, and then we made another course which was mainly for managers. And the course for managers, of course, focused on how can you use design thinking in your strategic work, and the other course for employees was more like how do you use design thinking in your daily work on getting or designing new products or services for your industry. And the way we did it was that we put these teams together of between 12 and 16 employees from different companies. We put them together, and the challenge was that we had all kind of people from, plumbers coming in, and people from factories that making cheese or sausages, or it was people from the service industry, some lawyers, and also all kind of employees came in the same course. And we simply started teaching them in the basic design thinking based on the design model that we use also for educating our students. So a simple design model. They were introduced to that. What does design thinking mean in practice, or in you say in as a process? And then we simply started to educate them in maybe a couple of 8 to 10 different tools or ways of thinking. So, for instance, how do I make a good interview? How do you observe your consumers? How do you collect data, and how do handle all the data once you come back? So they simply had hands-on training on different, around 10 different tools throughout the course, and it was really hands-on. So when we taught them now you're going to learn how to observe your customers, then we sent them to the nearest shop, bakery shop, to buy a cake, and then observe how are people behaving in the bakery shop, and then come back and tell what you found out, and then we had a discussion with them on how they observed or how they could do observations better. So really, really hands-on training in some of the basic design tools. In the beginning, it was also really difficult for us to know what the small and medium-sized companies they needed. So for us, this project has also been about us learning much more about how does small and medium-sized companies work. Where can they actually use design in their daily work? Because when we sent the students home, when they were at our facility for 2 days, we sent them home and met them after a month again, and then they could go back and use the tools that they learned. And they came back and told about how did they use them? How could they use them in their company? So that gave us a huge insight in how do we actually also, you can say, change our education in the tools and in design thinking. So it became more and more relevant for the small and medium-sized companies, because we, during the process, during the 8 years, we have learned a lot on how they work and what their needs are. Yeah, so that's in very short what we have done. We have during the 8 years, we have had more than 300 companies through this process here, and we have also had regular meetings with them afterwards. So after a year or two after, we have invited them into the school to tell about what have they learned, how do they use design thinking today. And a lot of these companies started to come back also and started to say, okay, how can we now start cooperating with the school, with some of the students? They could take our students in and have them to make their graduate project in some of the small companies. And in that way, we started to have a base of a foundation of a lot of small and medium-sized companies that we know now, and we are cooperating with, and we learn from them, they learn from us on how to use the design thinking in the company. And I think one of the learning is very much that it's very different to have a designer in a big company like Lego, where there's a lot of designers, and designers have a very focused job to work on a certain project. But if you are in a small company, if you are in a small company of maybe 40 people, the daily work is very different, because you can't have one designer to work full time on one project or on one task. You have to deal with development, strategic development, project or product or service development. Along with that, you are also doing the daily operational work in the company. So you have to share your time between being part of the daily operational work in the company, and then sometimes you can do like design work, maybe do some strategical workshops, or you can take out 1 month where you work focused on designing a new service or a new product. But it's really a different world than working in a big company. And to understand that and give that inspiration further on to our students has been a huge inspiration during this project. Yeah, I didn't share any slides here, but we are about to conclude the project now. And yeah, sorry?
You shared the story, not the slides.
Yeah, exactly. We're about to conclude the project now, and we're doing the final evaluation. And once we have that, we can also have Annette to share that in the group, so you can have an idea of what the more specific results have been.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for this insight. And I think, as you need to leave earlier, I think I just want to pick up one question that is in my mind, but that also came up in the chat. You were talking about different worlds, the different worlds inside school, outside school, small company, big company. But I think me and many of us are sort of very convinced that we are nowadays, not only due to the pandemics, live in a different world as well. So I would maybe sort of combine two questions. So if the people that you are bringing on a fast pace in a 6 days workshop to learn about design, if they maybe at a later stage come back and work with designers, is there any sort of evidence in the last month where you think that one of the companies sort of was addressing sort of major changes through design in a beneficial way that have been caused by the crisis? Because sometimes people are getting very nervous because we have to sometimes now act fast, even if problems are global on a local scale. Is there any sort of success related actually to your model that you can share with us?
Yeah, we have a lot of success stories. I think one of the very interesting one was I met a guy. He's a lawyer. So they're from a small, what's called, and he told that normally if you have a case or if you have a problem, you go to a lawyer and you say, I have this solution to it. But this small company actually totally changed the way of handling the customers coming in, because they actually did what designers normally did. They once the customer came, they said, well, we have this problem. Then the lawyer really started to ask, are you sure that this is the right problem? Or could we sit down and discuss a little bit what is it that we're talking about? And often they found out that actually the customer, the actual problem was a different one than the customer thought themselves. And in that discussion, they used traditional design tools like making it visible using post-its to discuss with the customer on what their problem was. And he said for many customers, it was really strange to come into a lawyer's office and see that they had posters placed all over the office, and they did a whole nother process. So just an example of a very simple mental shift in the whole way of managing a lawyer's office.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Even without hiring designers, they took the basic idea of design thinking into their daily operation. Mm-hmm. Did that answer?
Yeah. I think that sort of framing the brief or reframing the brief also refers to the first of the four key takeaways, as I understood it from Hara in Singapore, about the problem definition. And very often the designers have to define the problem as well. That's to me the major task, to really find and reframe the proper problem that is worth and able to be sort of allocated. So there was one other sort of question that might be easy to answer. How was the engagement in terms of the financial issue? Sort of, did they pay, or the SMEs, or sort of did you expect other types of sort of benefits? It was from Nick from London asking that.
Yeah, we were lucky that we had this as an EU project, so it was free for them to participate. But we have seen now the EU project stops, we start to offer this as a conventional training courses, and we can see that there are people willing to pay for this also. That might have been a problem in the beginning. I think we have made a lot of fuss around this project. So it's and also design thinking has been more matured and more we say public. There's been a larger public awareness around design thinking. So I think it's much easier to sell this type of courses today than it was 8 years ago. But we plan to make it a part of our new business in the school.
I think there are more questions popping up, but let's find a way, maybe, Annette, that you were going to answer them later, or we sort of put this in our Miro board. I will share this later on. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
I think
I can note, before I leave, I can check if there are some of the questions I can easily answer in writing here.
I think time-wise, we have to proceed right now, because if it's about the evaluation and the assessments of the tools, I think this is a longer discussion that's super interesting. That's not easy to answer, actually. I would hope to maybe sort of discuss that later in detail, or maybe get even sort of a written feedback from you to proceed with that. So thank you very much for giving us an insight in this project. And I think we need to sort of proceed thinking about to which degree this is transferable to other countries or cultures in other economic situations, because last time we also agreed that in Denmark still, I mean, even if you pointed out that 90% do not know what design is, still design has a reputation. In Denmark, Golding has a reputation, and in other countries, it is way tougher. We just figured out, for example, that if you look at the QS ranking of the best design schools, there's no African design school in, for example. Yeah, so this also tells something about the reputation of design in an environment. So I want to go, please, to India right now and ask Lolita, being the head of department and associate director communication design at the United World Institute of Design, being also very active at Cumulus, a frequent guest, and thus also connector in different working groups, what I think is super important, because we see the silos sort of, there's a need to connect also the silos. So thank you for your will to share, actually your story right now about social communication in an Indian context. And I'm especially happy that you also brought some students who could also tell their stories about how they were framing sort of problems, and also maybe sort of how it changed their mindset and how they can contribute. So, Lolita.
Thank you, Philip. Good evening, everybody. And yes, we will have the students sharing. Philip has already introduced me, so I'm not wasting any more time there. What we are going to be sharing with you is a module which we constructed, which we did last semester. This is before the disaster of the pandemic hit us. And this was designed for social awareness. And last year, what was trending in one of the conferences that I attended were the SDG goals. So the brief that I gave the students was to work on the SDG goals and come up with their own interpretation of how they, as designers, could do some problem solving. So these projects are at a very basic problem solving level of design, but I think some of them have the capacity to be taken further, and we can look at it differently as well. So as we know, India has a very vast kind of demographic. So there is virtually within every 50 kilometers, you will find a different language being spoken, or a different way in which you drink tea, or what they understand, what they don't understand. And there are many levels of complexities while we even work as designers in India, because the target group is so diverse. And the literacy rate, which we have currently, is 77.7%. And we have students here, of course, we can see them all diligently working on the computers, but unfortunately, we have a very large population of students, as I have mentioned earlier also, who do not have access to basic tools of education. And yet we need to create that awareness. We need to propel them forward into the next, let's say, 5 years of future technology or whatever it is. So I'm going to ask my colleague Abhijit to start sharing the projects with you. The students will talk about 30 seconds about their projects. And we are going to end with a short video film made by the students, including the song that's being sung on that, on gender equality, which is a big issue again in India. And this is about the auto rickshaw drivers, auto rickshaw being a very small means of common travel. So I'm going to ask Abhijit to start sharing the presentation of the very first project that we have. Thank you, and I will conclude later again. Abhijit, if you
yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we will share 5 projects, and I will tell each of the students who've actually done these projects to speak for some time. The first project is our road safety campaign by Yashashri. So Yashashri, if you're there, if you can explain the concept briefly.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Okay, so as generations evolve, there are massive changes that we can see in human psychology and behavioral pattern that actually leads to varied human limitations. Now, in order to understand these varied human limitations, we need to keep in mind the most important, essential key factor that when applied to any design application gives the best output. That is the human characteristics. Now, in India, the human characteristics are in the sense of amazement, curiosity, and engagement. Now, if you take these 3 elements and look through the audience's perspective, you could relate, if the audience could relate it to their lives, to their situations, that would actually give you the key to a successful campaign. So in my campaign, I decided to keep the visuals more heavy and have a supporting text so that it is much more interesting and engaging for the people to understand. It also has a vernacular language, which is the national language, that is Hindi, that I've used in my campaign. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Yashashri. So yeah, exactly what she explained, that, along with campaigns and posters in English, she has done the same thing in Hindi, which is a native language. The next project is called Green Deeds by Mansi. She's actually made an app. The app mainly does 3 things. It can track your carbon footprints. You can donate to the Ministry of Forests in India. And the last thing is, of course, you can adopt a tree through, again, the Ministry of Forest. Mansi, if you're there, if you can explain your concept a little bit.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I have worked on SG13, that is climate action, and created an app per carbon account linked to Indian Forest Services. So the mission is to promote tracking and reducing carbon footprints by adoption of green lifestyle practices with a contribution to, with a combination of financial transaction to create an eco-friendly culture. Thank you.
So this is exactly her problem statement, the target audience that she's talking about, followed by the branding, of course, of the app, and then followed by the UI design of the platform, which is the app. So going to the next project is a project called Masa by Sonali. So Sonali's project is actually about bridging the gap between fishermen and consumers of seafood and fish products. Sonali, if you're there, if you can explain your concept a little bit.
So ocean life is in danger. So I wanted to build a platform to create an awareness and solve this problem through branding and packaging.
So I'll quickly take you through Sonali's work. So this is her branding, a little bit of a logo, the visual identity of the brand, followed by, of course, the website, and mainly the packaging, which she has definitely concentrated more in the whole project. The next project is by Shrajan. Shrajan has actually created a simple infographics on the different ways to segregate waste products. And he's actually trying to teach the same to the citizens in India. Shrajan, if you're there.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So after doing my research, I came to realize that in India, waste segregation is a big problem. So here I am trying to show through this campaign how to segregate waste through print media, newspapers, spread and brochure, followed by some wall painting in vernacular language for rural areas. So these are some wall paintings that can be put in some rural areas. And there are some like branding also that can go in every product.
Thank you, Shrajan. So wall painting is actually still quite a strong visual communication in India. Exactly how he said that, he's put the same sort of feature in various consumer goods. So it is easy for, it goes to more people. The next project, the last one, is called the Pink Journey. This is a gender equality project done by 4 people, Piyush, Pranay, Venkatesh, and Vishesh. So Piyush, if you can talk a little bit about your concept.
Good evening, everyone. The concept of women driving public transport in India is very new. We are promoting that event women to drivers in Pune. We have tried to show through this campaign that women are being allowed to drive public transport in India under the Sustainable Goal 5, Gender Equality. Over to you, Abhijit sir. I hope you enjoy the video.
So this is a video, so let me know if you can hear the sound well, yeah?
There are subtitles.
Okay, there's someone.
तुमचं नाव काय? कविता अमृषी मैदार. ओके. आणि तुम्हाला किती म्हणजे वर्ष महिने काय कसं रिक्षा चालवणं कसं चालवतं? 2 वर्ष झाले चालवते मी. 2 वर्ष झाले. ओके. तुम्हाला कोणी आधीपासून मदत केली का तुम्ही स्वतःहून पुढे येऊन चालू केलं? नाही, जे मी स्वतःहूनच केलं चालू, कारण मला मी पहिला टेम्पो चालवायची. मग त्याच्यामुळे मला परमिट भेटल्या ते सरकारने चांगली सुविधा काढली की परमिटची सुविधा केली लेडीजसाठी. मग त्याच्यामध्ये मला परमिट भेटलं मग.
Yeah, I think that's it from my end.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, students, for the presentation. I'm going to leave everybody with these thoughts. If there are any questions or you would like to give any feedback, please do so. We really would welcome any kind of thoughts that you may have. As I said, this is a very basic, these are basic design projects looking at social awareness in a certain context, in certain very specific Indian context. So it would be really lovely to hear from everybody, and please do write to me at, I've given the email address over there. And thank you for listening to us. And we do hope that we'll have a chance to do something again in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you, Lolita. Thank you, Abhijit. And first of all, thank you, dear students. I think it was really cool that you presented your work. It is so hard to present a project in less than a minute. I really appreciate this in that density. I was just sitting in a review this morning at Konji University, and they had 5 minutes for a project, and this was super dense. So just one sort of immediate question that I'm having. We were talking about sort of awareness and raising awareness, and maybe even the students could answer. That would be awesome.
Yeah, of course.
Did you sort of choose the topics on your own, or was it more like that the school or the context opened you the eyes? Come on, let's pick those topics.
No, they chose
framing and problem.
Yeah, so I briefed them on the 17 SDG goals, and we always give them the prerogative to choose their projects. So I can ask one of them, Yashashri, would you like to decide how you decided your project, or Piyush, one of you? Whoever is ready to answer.
We used the sustainable goals, then we had to conclude on one sustainable goal. Or it was the Sustainable Development Goal 5, which was gender equality. So we started looking up recent news that had come up regarding gender equality, and we came across that women recently have started driving autos in Pune. These are like 100 auto drivers, female auto drivers that have been started in Pune by Sri Baba Ambedkar. And it's a great initiative by him, and it's been following on by people now across places in India.
So they do a lot of research before they finally decide to choose a project they're doing. There's a lot of emphasis laid on the design process, and then we take it further. And being social campaigns, very often we also have to look at language, which becomes very important. So we have a mentor-mentee situation, and we guide them through that process. So each mentor has about 10 students, maybe, or 12 at most. And some of these were, I think, one of the boys group was with me, and the others were, I guess, with other people. So that's how the process takes place.
Okay, so thank you very much. So there was one more question, but is there a question from the audience? Otherwise, if nobody talks, maybe Rosangela, would you come up with your question?
Don't they have conflicts within their household? Is that for the auto rickshaw drivers? Rosangela, is that question meant for the
pink drivers? Yes.
For the pink drivers, yes, they do, because as I said, the demographic in India is very, very complex. And these are people who have access to very basic education, basic facilities. They don't live in, sort of very even well-ventilated houses. So for them, it becomes a means of increase, of providing employment for themselves, which they can then feel happy doing. And it's not an easy thing to do. So yes, there is a lot of conflict sometimes. I hope that.
Yes. The thing is how they tackle this kind of conflicts, since there must be resistance.
Easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
it's a very
easy.
complex situation and question.
Okay. Yeah.
It's very, very common. And different regions of India have different complexities. Maharashtra, which has a slightly higher literacy rate. So they do give some credence to women's empowerment. But there are places where women are still just not even, out of the house.
Okay, thank you.
Pink Journey project link. Yes, we will definitely share it with you. Definitely. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much for sharing, and thank you for your excellent branding with your Zoom backgrounds, even with those movements. That looks awesome. And as a response, when you were presenting, I was looking in a lot of smiling faces from the audience, so that's also nice to see. Talking about smiling faces, I have the pleasure that we have Teresa right now here. And we all have confusions with time zones. It happens everywhere.
Hi everyone. Sorry, Philip. I really continue to make a mess with the UTC time, and I was preparing everything, thinking I was arriving earlier, and in fact I'm arriving almost 1 hour late. Sorry.
But it's nice to come in such a big auditorium. Feel very welcome. Yeah, I just briefly shared with you where we are right now. So I think, Teresa, would you be willing to introduce Leticia next?
Yes, it's an honor to have also someone from Brazil, which is a Portuguese brother from Portugal. So it's very nice to be able to introduce Leticia. Leticia Castro is she is the director of the Central Brazil Design, which is Design Brazil Center, and she will share her perspective on design potentials in collaborative projects in Brazil. So I will give the floor to Leticia so she can talk a little bit with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Philip. And hello, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to thank you, Agnaldo, too, because he introduced us to the group. So I'm going to share with you a presentation. Right. Let me see. Could you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So let's go. So as Teresa told you, I am from Brazil Design Center. I'm here today to share with you a little bit about our perspective on collaborative design and how design could transform some realities and some projects inside the industry. Brazil Design Center is a for-profit institution. We have been working for 21 years here in Brazil, trying to promote the use of design and the understanding of design. We made more than 20 design programs here in Brazil, more than 500 talks here and abroad. And we use design and innovations as strategic drivers for competitiveness and take these tools to every sector of the Brazilian economy. As a design center, we do not work for the designers, but we do it for the companies and for the industries. We do not do design here. What we do is connection. So we say that we are a hub of innovative connections. We helped more than 5,700 companies all over Brazil to develop new products, packaging, and branding, and so on. And what this perspective, all this job that we made in 21 years allowed us to develop a methodology that we call design à prática. That means design in practice. So what we do is teach businessmen, companies, and so on, how to use design and how design could be so important to a new approach in the companies, how it could be so important as a strategic tool to development, as a strategic tool for a sustainable development. So this methodology allowed us to go into the companies, into the industries, and teach the businessmen how they could understand design and how design could be part of the industry culture. And we have a big purpose. Since 2018, we became signatory of the UN Global Compact. We are the first Brazilian design institution to be signatory. And we have been sharing the sustainable development goals. So to do it, we started to discuss here in Brazil how design could be so important to discuss this question for a better world. How design could be so important to deal with all the challenges that we will have for this new era. So we have been trying to discuss all these things here in Brazil. We have been having many discussions, some events, and how we could promote more transforming connections through design, and how we could potentialize the power of design as a tool to the upcoming challenges. So that are some of the questions that we are trying to answer, and that we are doing to the businessmen, companies, designers, and trying to push them to this new agenda. We believe that we could and we should connect different actors, that we need to build multi and interdisciplinary teams to deal with all these changes. We need to bring designers together. We still face in Brazil a really difficult connection with companies and businessmen, because here in our culture, businessmen believe that they could do everything by themselves, and they still do not know how design could be so important to the companies and the new strategies, and to deal with the innovation that they need. And but the good thing is that all 80%, almost 90% of the companies that worked with us through our design programs, and the companies that experience design, they became to use design in all of the projects in the companies. So that means that design is really something very important. But the problem is that the businessmen, they need to try it in practice. That's why we try to use our methodology, because in practice they could see how design could be so important and the impact that design could do in the companies. We need to promote innovation, and it's very important. We need to start thinking differently. We need to work with transformative connections, and that's something that Brazil Design Center do. That's our biggest job, I can say. We are always trying to connect different actors, and doing it, we expect to have a better project and projects for a better world. I will share with you some examples, trying to show how we made these connections and what briefly what were the results of these connections. And if you need, we can share more information after this presentation or through our email, website, and so on. So the first one, it's a company that was in our design program, and we connected this company with a design studio. The company is called BioArt, and BioArt is a company, a Brazilian company, the first Brazilian company to produce biocosmetics and eco makeups. They have been doing it since 2010. So it's a pretty new company, and they do these makeups based on clays and bioactives carefully selected from the Brazilian nature. They offer products developed through green technology, natural and organic bio-nutritive ingredients, and toxin-free formulas. So it's a company that's very connected with this natural concept, and they need to bring it to this to their packaging. So they develop all the packaging using refills. So we as consumers, we can buy just once the makeup or the cream, And then the next times that we buy something, we just need to buy the refill that I'm showing you in the presentation. It's a very good product. And when you need to buy just the refill, it's less expensive. It's almost half the price. And I can say it because I use all the products from this company. And the designer tried to bring to the packaging all the icons that that can say what this company do, that they are natural, that they do not use toxin, that they are 100% vegan, and so on. And the idea of the company is to promote a more conscious consumption and trying to use more refills, less than packaging, and trying to sell through the websites, internet, so they do not have stores. The other case I will share with you, it's another company that took part in a design program with us, and we connected them with a design studio and a university. This company is called Evie, and this product was born based in the idea that 90% of the cleaning products that we buy in the supermarket have 90% of water. So what we take in the supermarket and to our homes are 90% water. And this is a very big impact in the logistic approach. So we connect them with this design company, and then they develop all the idea of the packaging. So the result of the project was a cleaning kit consisting of a returnable spray bottle, this one that I showed you, and these capsules I'm showing you in the presentation that can be solved in the water at home. So you just need to buy the capsules, and then you can keep the spray bottle at home. You just buy the spray bottle, the big one, once. And after that first time, you will buy just the capsules. And this is very interesting because this product, despite of being used in recyclable bottle and this capsules idea, it's a 100% natural product to cleaning our homes. So it's made by terpeno, which is an ingredient from the orange. And it do not use any kind of chemical things. And the good thing of this company, they just sell their product through the websites, to the e-commerce. And during this year, with the pandemic problem, they grew up a lot. They are selling a lot of products, and it became a big success because they are really ready to sell everything through the internet, and people started to look after this product much more. And he opened the market this year in the United States market, so it became really a good success. And the other case I will share with you is another kind of connection that we made here. That's a design student, and we connected her with international design prizes. So their project became more well-known. And we are connecting her with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the idea of this connection is to help this girl, it's a girl, to finish the development of her idea. In 2014, on the occasion of International Women's Day, the United Nations recognized that women's right to menstrual hygiene is something related to health and human rights issue. This girl, Rafaela, it's her name, and she developed Maria. Maria is an organic tampon that can be used for homeless and poor women that cannot pay for a pad to her period, do not have any bathroom or even a place to take a shower. And people could not imagine what is it. Women can understand what's the problem. The idea is to produce it in a roll, just like toilet paper, so that it can be used in just the right quantity as needed, resilient enough to deal with any obstacle. The tampon is made from banana fiber, which means it can be produced and thrown away without any great harm to the environment. Menstrual hygiene is not and never should be a privilege. It is a right for everyone. So this project is really a wonderful project, and we are helping this girl to finish developing this project and trying to get the market with this idea. In 2019, we helped her to subscribe in international awards, and she won the IF Talent Design Award. And the last case I will share with you, it's a case that have been run here in our city. Agnaldo know very well this project too. And this is a company that was connected to a university and a designer that worked inside the company. And this project is called Gomo Bracelet. This company is called OS, and OS creates, develops, and produces shoes since 2018. So they have been getting a lot of market, and they are very well known by producing shoes. And this year they decided to create something really different, and they were trying to help preventing the COVID-19. The idea of the company was to develop something that could help with the pandemic. So to do this challenge, they invited two federal universities, one federal university from Paraná, which is in the south part of Brazil, and the other university from Ceará, which is a state from the north part of Brazil. So there are quite a different, how can I say, perspectives here in our country. And the result was this Gomo bracelet that is a hand dispenser designed to create the habit to prevent hygiene and practical and effective way. The Gomo bracelet is portable, modular, and interchangeable. After 4 months of work, they launched the project, and the first bracelets were a gift for the students from Brejo Santo, which is a city in the north part of Brazil, in the state of Ceará. So they give all these bracelets to the students that have 10 to 14 years old, trying to teach them how important it is to take care of the situation with the pandemic in a really good and interesting way. So children would like to use the bracelet. I will share with you a quick video that shows this project. Just let me find here. Let me know if you can see.
We still see your presentation.
Yeah.
I think that I need to stop the presentation maybe.
Yeah, and then share it again with another.
Okay, and I will share now. Here, okay. Now it's the video.
OS creates, develops, and produces shoes since 2008. This year was a bit different. We turned our efforts to the study of materials and technologies of shoe production to create something that could be useful in preventing COVID-19. For this challenge, we invited UFPR, which set up research groups and identified that we should start in Ceará, in Brejo Santo. In addition to the high rate of spread of the disease in the city, all of our production is done there. that in mind, UFC and UFCA entered to help us with ideas, information, and local experience so that the project would make sense regionally. The result was the Gomo bracelet, a hand sanitizer dispenser designed to create the habit of preventive hygiene in a practical and effective way. The Gomo bracelet is portable, modular, and interchangeable. After 4 months of work, we launched the project by donating the bracelet to all public school students from 10 to 14 years old in Brejo Santos, going beyond our commercial relationship with the city and thus developing a project that is a counterpart to the affection we have in the production of each pair of homes. Since one hand washes the other, after this initial donation, the Gomo bracelets will be available for sale for 35 reais. For each bracelet sold, another one will be given free of charge to a child from public schools in other cities in Ceará. The delivery of donations will be linked to an educational training on the use of the bracelet in the prevention of COVID-19 and the correct disposal of the piece. Training will be secure and remote. The Gomo bracelet is made of TPU, a highly resistant material, 100% recyclable and non-toxic, essential to ensure the health of everyone involved. In addition, a reverse logistics system will compensate 100% of the material used in the entire production of each bracelet. And we can go further. The project has a Creative Commons license, which allows its reproduction, sharing, and alterations by anyone, as long as it is not for commercial purposes. Go to os.com.br/pulseiragomo and get yours, or find the store that is closest to you.
Okay, so that are some of the ideas I would like to share with you. Something that Brazil Design Center are trying to improve here in Brazil, trying to do some interesting connections in order to build this idea of using design for a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia.
Thank you, yes. Any comments or questions? I think, yeah, maybe just one comment that sort of came into
one question.
Yeah, Peter, please.
Leticia, I am really very impressed with the kind of work that you've been doing. So it's just a matter of curiosity. What are the numbers that you deal with when you have these programs with companies or with universities? What are the number of students or the number of participants, let's say?
Okay, so each of the programs have different numbers because we built the programs for different clients. Most of them are from the government. So, for example, the last program that we developed here was for an institution called Apex Brazil, and the program was focused in helping Brazilian companies to develop product and packaging for exportation. This program was called Design Export, and it had 3 editions. So the first edition started in 2012, and the last edition finished at the beginning of this year. So 3 editions. In each edition, we worked with 100 or 200 companies.
Oh.
So to do it, and yes, to do it and to work all over Brazil with these companies, we have many consultants that work with us in Brazil Design Center. And the consultants, they were in the cities near the companies. So they will be able to go to these companies with a not so big need of transport. So we have consultants in the north part of Brazil, in the center of Brazil, in the south of Brazil. So all regions we have consultants, and the companies will be attended by these consultants, and we will choose the consultant by distance.
And the program is for how long?
To develop a product or a packaging with a company using the methodology, it took us more or less 6 months to 1 year.
1 year.
Okay, but most of the cases, it's 1 year, because it depends on the timing of the company, the industry. So sometimes it took so long. Some of the companies are more quick because they are small-sized companies. Then we could develop in 6 months, and it depends on the difficulty of the project.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks. That was helpful. Yeah.
You are welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Your comment or your question, Lolita, went pretty much in the direction of my sort of thought that I had when I was watching your presentation, because I think it's very impressive, but just the question showed that there are many things that you haven't shown, obviously. And I think maybe as we've been talking about, how do we communicate the value of design also to non-designers and amongst us? I think for me, it would be super interesting maybe to have to focus on show how we made something possible, how you went out, sort of which are the people or the stakeholders you've been talking to. How did you interview people, actually, not precisely talking about the methodology, but maybe to show the complexity of the process and the richness of the process that you achieved in this little time might be super interesting, and not sort of the genius project process that you have an idea and that you develop something. Because I think this is a capability of design, and especially in a country as big as Brazil is, and you come up with ideas as you're having to choose consultants by proximity for a very good reason, actually. Yeah, so thank you very much for this presentation. I think that's very interesting also, that you immediately connect to the Indian perspective. I would be very happy if we could right now come to the last but not least presentation of Albert. Albert, I'm very happy that you also accept to join this session of the working group. You're also in a couple of working group sessions across the sectors, across the boundaries. Albert is academic director in the undergraduate programs and research master at Elisava, Barcelona in Spain. And I was asking Albert to talk about emerging competencies in transdisciplinary design. I mean, the background is that I had quite a few conversations with Albert about collaborations, and Albert was the leader of the creative skills for strategic challenges, an EU tender actually addressing very crucial competencies in design and how to implant them in formats of collaboration outside traditional academic structures that unfortunately didn't succeed. But nevertheless, as last time we were also talking about those competencies that we've seen today as well, I mean, I would be super interested to see sort of your perspective on the competencies that you either see emerging or where you see the need to emerge, because I think those are the values and assets that we then sort of can communicate. So please, Albert, I'm happy to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you all for this interesting session, especially Philip and Teresa for inviting me. So I will share my screen and try to shortly explain several ideas I have related to that. I guess you see my screen right now. So yeah, this is the title, Emerging Competencies in Transdisciplinary Design, as suggested by Philip. And yes, first of all, I wanted to explain a little bit how we develop design and training in design in our school, because curiously enough, creativity has been capitalized by business schools, which is completely incredible, because I think that it should have been capitalized by arts and design schools rather than business schools. So I tried to express only 3 threads reflected on how do we train design at Elisava to then jump to this idea of how these skills and competencies can be transferred to other fields. First, issues related to time. I think that students that enroll at design school right now are not, don't have the idea of a school as an incubator in which you're trained for 4 or 5 years to perform when you are assumed to be a professional. I think that the time is now. Future is not such a promising moment for youngsters right now. So we push for them to work constantly from the first week until they get their PhD, if they get it, in contact, in real projects, crossing constantly from research to first year, from engineering to design, to push this idea of impact and at the first moment. So this is my first reflection, the idea that the time is now, and students don't enroll at design school to be incubated for years. They want to impact in the environment, as we do, for example, in our final degree projects, that all of them are linked to our research threads and are finally showcased in the typical degree show, in which we express how our students feel the time is now. And then I take the idea from Philip in the last meeting we were, of this duality between the chronos idea of time and the kairos idea of time, both of them Greek gods. And I want to push this sense of opportunity. Let's give our students the sense of opportunity. We have lots of management related to the school, and we want them to feel that from the first day they enter the school, they can move in a fluid way to contact with their dreams, with their wills, with their motivations. The second level is place, and the place, we are so used to believe, and many of the examples here express this transformation. We are so used to believe that anything related to training happens inside of a building called a school, or even inside in a campus, the biggest it can be. And we are trying to break this idea. So we are pushing for the concept of distributed school, believing that the environment is a key agent in the learning experience. Of course, coming from Donna Haraway, and then we are pushing our students from first year to fourth year to develop this idea of an extended campus in which they can work in our facilities outside of Barcelona, in a ceramic school, or they can work in the Adidas Maker Lab, or they can move to Senegal to interact with designers and craftsmen down there, or wherever, whenever. So this is really important, this idea of the distributed school and an extended campus for the students to understand that their field of action is not a classroom, it's not a workshop, the nicest or the biggest it can be, but it's the whole world. So this idea of situated action, this idea that designers have to act, and they have to act in a concrete, in a precise context. And the third one that is been perfectly expressed by the previous talks is this idea of design with, coming also from Donna Haraway, think with, but expressed by Ron Wackery. This idea that they have to understand that their skills and competences are constantly interacting with many other people, of course, human beings, and sometimes even not human beings, with the planet. So we are pushing this idea of understanding that their skills have to be constantly in contrast with other skills, with other necessities, with different backgrounds. One example is this one, that it's a platform that we developed with Ezio Manzini, and that is called Design for City Making, in which we promoted projects that could participate of the city at the same level that those from architects or urban planners or economists. So small projects that integrate in the fabric of the city, and in which we pushed our students to design with, for example, these two students with this beautiful lady in the middle, that was one of the invisible makers of a really posh neighborhood, really startup style. And we asked our students to search for invisible makers that could bring legacy, could bring some knowledge, could bring some competences that were outside of the boundaries of this Bay Area idea of innovation. And we also do innovation labs, which are like small modules that are elective, are not connected to any credit, to any mandatory subject. They are elective, and we push students to interact with any of these companies, NGOs, institutions, to train them in this understanding of their performance as something more than ideas and drawing. So we are pushing for these meaningful interactions. So as a conclusion of this reflection on what do we do at Elisava, I open this idea that I recover this idea of why business schools have capitalized creativity and we designers are like behind them. I think that we have to move from abstraction to concretion. I think that we have many capacities that business schools do not have. For example, we have the material dimension, the materiality. We are in an environmental crisis, in a health crisis, of course, in a gender issues crisis, and we do work with materiality, and we know the importance of tactility, of quality, and many things that finally are part of human being environment, and we have to push for that, breaking this abstract idea of innovation and working in the idea of how materials interact with us, and opening and pretty critic with the idea of innovation, opening something that Martin Tironi told us 1 year ago in Bogota, this idea of maintenance, in which measure this environmental and health crisis has to work with maintenance, in understanding that we have enough things in our role, and the role of designers is to identify which are important, to recover those that have been neglected or forgotten, and not to bring more and more products and waste more resources. So this idea of having a concrete connection with the environment, and of course with places, with people, I think we have these capacities to link with the human dimension of what we are promoting, to understand their meaning and to suggest new threats for change. So this would be like the headlines of what I wanted to express. And finally, with clear outcomes that we've been testing. One of them has been explained by Philip, and it's the last slide of my presentation. We developed an European Creative Europe project with Salzburg and TU in Dublin, and it was really nice because we wanted to push this idea of creative skills, European creative skills. And the project finished 1 year ago, and you have this DutchProject.net in which you can, for example, work in this creative decoding tool in which we push this idea of which are the real competencies a designer or a creative person can bring to the board of where economic or businessmen, of course, or engineers or architects or urban planners or sociologists are. So these were one of our outcomes. One more was this Design Does exhibition that was opened 2 years ago in Barcelona, but right now has been open in Hong Kong. We haven't had the chance to be there in the opening, and we really expected to, but finally it was there. And this exhibition worked on the idea of what design really does. So moving from this abstract wall of ideas, of strategies, of what we expect to happen, and put on the table real things, objects, products, apps, whatever, weapons that designers do and reflect on them, but with the staff there. And for example, one more thing was this mastering creative process in which for 3 years we trained, and we almost succeed to train people coming from business schools, from engineering schools, from management and so on, try to express them what creativity really means for those people who believe that creativity is their key bone, the key bone of their competencies. So we try to express these skills in this master. And as mentioned by Philip, last year we pushed for this creative skills for strategic challenges project with Cumulus, that was one of the partners, with other design schools in Europe. And with it, we tried to push this idea on in which measure creative competencies and skills are transferable to many other fields, and in which measure those who mostly know these competencies are design and art schools, and we tried to find out ways to interact at the same level to promote issues like materiality, that this link with the context, that this attention to the human and environmental dimension. This idea, which is really important for us, we deal with small things, with bracelets and so on, but we have to push the idea that these small things can be systemic. And this is really hard for someone who always work with Excel sheets and that work at the global economy level. We have to express them that with small things makes systemic changes. And of course, something that we have also to capitalize, that is this capacity of sense making through design. So that's all. This is a little bit what I wanted to share with you. Thanks again, and open to the discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Albert.
Thank you, Albert. Very, very strong and inspiring. And I was very happy with the last slide, or the slide before the last slide, because I noted down whether there's a contradiction. As you said, okay, let's go from abstract to concrete. And before we heard about systemic oriented thinking or systemic oriented design. And I understood that, okay, every little thing is embedded in a system, but the other way around, once you think about system as a designer, you have to come to a level of sort of materializing things actually, to have this micro level and this macro level actually. Yeah. And I see it as two entry points, because, for example, our students some of them are very strong in sort of this systemic thinking, and then you have to sort of bring them down to materialize stuff. And some are just working on materialize, and you have to sort of create the awareness, what Lolita said, okay, but this is really part of a big network of agency, of environmental agency, of human and non-human beings, and of sort of social, political, economical processes. Yeah, so thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments? Right now we are through. We are open for a wonderful discussion right now.
I can add something. I didn't saw all the presentations, but there was something common between the presentation from Lolita and the students of Lolita and Albert, that is this idea of putting the students outside in real contexts and make them be the energy for starting their own projects. It's not our turn to tell them what they have to research or which kind of problems they have to solve, but make them being in this inquiry-based learning approach coming from themselves. So we are creating a more critique and creative students, because as Albert was saying, it seems that all the other schools seem to have a more ownership of creativity rather than us. Probably design schools are just communicating not so very well what they are able to do. And with Laetitia also, there are some design centers in some countries, and they have a big role in promoting design with other stakeholders. But sometimes we don't join these design centers with local communities, with local organizations, to design and co-design with design schools their own curricula and programs. And we are bringing students to collaborate with us, designing our programs, but sometimes we do forget to bring these design centers that have an important role connecting all the dots but they are not called to the open discussion how we need to transform our curricula, because we need to update some of our schools. We know that the programs are very old-fashioned, last century, and they need to be changed more often. So it's important to bring real context in the discussion, and I'm not sure how many people we are bringing together inside our university. So we are going outside, but we are not bringing the others inside to discuss with us.
And something important for me, I do completely agree, and there were post-its mentioned in Karsten's presentation. I use post-it sometimes, and I also have PowerPoint presentations sometimes, but I think that we have to push to break these frames, that any business school student can work with post-its and PowerPoint presentations, but not any engineer or sociologist can work with materiality, can work with typography, with textures, with color, with light. And finally, it's what we have all around. So the more abstract this systemic or this strategy want to happen, finally, it will be in a beach in Africa, or it will be in our neighborhood, or it will be somewhere. So I think that we have to also be wise to strengthen the different competencies we have from many other people that are working to improve the world. I'm not saying they're not working in this direction, but I think that we have to contribute from our main capacities.
I agree with you, Albert. I think that growth has to be very organic. It has to kind of, spread in a kind of way which, goes and comes back. And the sensitivity towards the color and the light and all those are very, very, very important.
I think it was a couple of years ago, or maybe even more than 10 years ago, I think it was in Eindhoven, where they brought up this idea of thinking with your hands. And it was sort of something like a reference to the past. And this is what I sometimes sort of dislike. Okay, we go back to our good old things that we can do. But I think we can and we need to combine them, because they emerged at a time where we only concentrated on typography or on material. When I studied that, the idea of designer as an author was pretty new to some of the students, that we sort of have a statement, that we have a message, that we need to find our topics. And you're in the middle of systemic thinking, systemic acting, but you try to make a difference to what you're doing and the way you're doing it with a very sort of designerly way of contributing to the world in the end, in a meaningful way. And I think that's also something that we do together with other people and together with other disciplines. And I think that's also something that interests me a lot, and where I see a lot of interest actually to have sort of this inter or transdisciplinary collaborations that is informed by design practices, but also informs design practices. And if you work with material, with matter, with materiality, you have to sort of learn from biology, for example. You have to learn from chemistry. Yeah, but maybe design looks way too much to business right now. And this is also what I sort of dislike sometimes in the discussions. And even last time we said, okay, how do we get in touch sort of with the business world, yeah, but with the economic world around us, knowing that there is either the opportunity, I think we agree, and maybe not all of us agree, that there's a need of change of this sort of economic model. So how to do this and how to work in this sort of transdisciplinary settings. And so I think to give you a perspective of the journey, I think the ambitions that Teresa and me were having is to sort of unfold a bit the bouquet, the complexity right now. And as I don't know who in the chat mentioned it, it was really a conversation across the continents right now. I think that was really, really interesting to see and to listen to that. But then in the next step, what we're going to do in March, to see how can this go into curricula, how can this go into maybe new models of sort of design education, this is why I asked you, John, also to join today, because we want to learn more from your sort of fluid transdisciplinary sort of program that you're having in Parsons, and other people as well that are rethinking right now their university structures. So therefore, I think this whole competencies idea is very, very crucial and very interesting. And I see many universities struggling. But maybe there are more comments actually from the other universities or colleagues.
Yeah,
Grant, welcome, please.
Hi there, everyone. Yes, you're very on point. You know, I get a sense that design has, in many ways, accelerated and is getting the possibility to touch so many different aspects of people on the planet. And I think it's moved so fast that the educational sector just hasn't managed to keep up. I really do. I mean, I got experience from both the UK and from France, and clearly it's very, very different, being either science-based or art-based. But it is still grounded in a very most basic level of where design came from. And it's clearly struggling to get to the point of reaching something that will help navigate complexity and also be concrete. It's kind of a very ephemer, very much in the sky. And what I get a sense that while we all here kind of can talk about this and maybe share our opinions, actually putting rubber down on the road, so to speak, so that it has an impact on undergraduates and graduate level is something very, very different. Clearly very hard to achieve.
Any other question, comment?
I'll just jump in and say thank you to our hosts and to everybody who contributed today. I really appreciated seeing and listening. Yeah, I think that for us at Parsons in the Transdisciplinary Design MFA, it is always a kind of a contested space, if you will, to kind of hold the tensions of moving between theory and practice, moving across disciplines, indeed, you know, moving between materials, or as Buckminster Fuller would say, the trim tab and the system, moving through the social sciences, and there, you know, the students and the work can easily get lost. It can become unwieldy, and so we're also kind of working to build capacities around that, around moving from larger systems and having moments of, you know, being on the ground, as we say, with real people, real situations. Obviously, Donna Haraway, very big in our ecosystem as well. And moving back and forth between these two spaces, which that kind of rigor is often the challenge, and time is a big factor of being able to soak in that rigor and to be able to shift that gestalt of the theory, the practice, the large system, and the much more minute situated experience. So the diversity of how we participate, that participatory design-led research, that's really what we look at as the spine, and then the analysis and synthesis of what's generated as raw findings from those experiences also requires a tremendous amount of rigor, time, and a participatory mode. So I really enjoyed today, and thank you very much, and I look forward to contributing and joining other conversations.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I think this, I think let's work and let's face on this sort of contradictions, as you brought it, sort of, Grant, also about navigating complexity. And we know that we have to deal with those unknowns right now in the sort of education, and raise the interest. And I see a lot of interest from the student perspective. So still the challenge to me is that the discussion that we're having right now seems to be a bit academic, to sort of connect it. And that's what you said in terms of participation, and participation outside the ivory tower, or outside the classroom, when going out to the real world, because you can go out to the real world either to interact with people or with objects or whatever, sort of to share the practices and to share the approaches that we're having, to show again the value that design can have, and the direction in that design is going through those processes. Yes, so I'm quite happy with the conversation right now. I think we have seen very different things. I had one more question on the table, but Hara left right now, because one of the issues we were also talking about last time, does it make sense in all this sort of complexity and sort of difference and openness of topics? I mean, everybody's talking about oceans and water and food and so on. Does it make sense to connect to a reference system as the SDGs might be? Because 3 of the 5 presentations were relating to the SDG, and I'm still a bit sort of critical to that for a couple of reasons. But it helps a lot to sort of connect to each other. And this morning in Tonji, I also have seen all the presentations were related to the SDGs. In many schools, they relate their stuff to all their work to the SDGs. So is there something like a reference system that helps us to connect? Because I think that's the other level. I see very often those presentations of the students' outcome, and then we say, okay, what to do next? And how to connect, how to build on that. That's a wonderful flower. What to do with the seeds, what to do with the knowledge that we're having right now. And there, I think this reference system, or I think Hara also brought it up, the terminology, we've been talking about that as well. We need a specific terminology, both for us very clearly, but also to connect to the outside non-design world, would help, might help actually. But in NIS, are all your projects related to the SDGs? Explicitly or implicitly?
Yeah, no, pretty much. Yeah. Well, I mean, in essence, it's a backbone that we refer to.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of theoretical underpinning.
Sure.
That then runs alongside the design underpinning. Mm. And so I think it's a very interesting question, because is it turning your mind to a project on the SDG and then saying, no, I've addressed it, or the way we've tried to look at it is to say that you fundamentally change how a student looks at the world and looks through the prism of sustainability. And in other words, it's not just a tick box. It's not just a box like ergonomics. You know, okay, did I study the ergonomics of my solution? Tick. Did I do the sustainability? Tick. And it's kind of nice to try and say, right, okay, you've only got your 5 years to literally change almost a philosophy and an outlook of in essence, a young adult, so that they have a different way of seeing the world. And then I think if you can manage that, it's something that, well, that's really what education should be. It's about transformation. It's not really about giving tools. It's not about giving knowledge. It's about giving somebody a posture and a stance in the world. And that's kind of where that idea comes from.
But regarding this, Philip, in Portugal, 10 years ago, it was made a huge investment in scholarships, research scholarships for PhD students and research at large. And then they have done a study, and none of those investments there that were made in PhD students have an impact on society and economy, meaning that the research were very theoretical or didn't have any impact. And nowadays, the Foundation for Science and Technology, which is the foundation that awards these research scholarships, makes the candidates to state 2 of the SDG that they will achieve with their own research. So it's a way to try to make it more practical or more applicable to not only to the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, but as a society, you know, it has to have an impact. And it's important to sometimes have these goals to make people decide what are the impacts of their own research. So
I think that's absolutely crucial, and I think this might also be a filter how like-minded partners will find each other around the globe. But when I look, for example, at the model that you have been suggesting, Albert, society, human, information, material technologies, those 5 options for the final degree project, if I understood it right, they make a lot of sense, and they challenge the students with the word meaningful, because you have to say why it is meaningful. And it's absolutely not about ticking boxes, but in terms of setting up joint activities or joint programs, both inside the design sector. For me, it might be harder to say, yes, let's work with material or with information than if we would cooperate around SDG 17. Especially if you go outside of the design domain, then it might be easy to say, look, this is SDG 17. Maybe it's a multi-dimensional matrix. I like very much the simplicity and poetic of your sort of 5 fingers, and especially as it opens, it is very clear that it's not a tick box actually, but that it's sort of make up your mind how you want to give a meaningful contribution. And the future starts right now. I mean, in another context, we were discussing to call designers no longer, so students no longer students, but future designers. And that's what you said. I mean, they're in the very first year, they have to go out and they work actually on becoming designers, becoming future designers, and design the future in the same way. Yeah, so I think we won't solve this right now, but this would be something that I think would be super interesting to say, okay, can we agree, not on a manifesto, not on sort of core skills or competencies, but maybe on this, on a reference system that allows us to interact with sort of the other disciplines that we need for the transdisciplinary collaboration.
Yeah, sorry, shortly, because I'll have to move, but I do agree, and I have here all the SDGs and how our mandatory subjects are interacting with them. Okay. I do agree. And I think that the SDGs is a great frame. That this slide was the first idea we had 4 years ago, this of the 5 areas, which is nice. I do agree, and related to what Grant mentioned, I think that the SDGs are a good frame because commonly our students want to change the world, and they believe that making a chair is not that much because they want to change the world. And I think that the SDGs are a good path to frame some ideas, and also for them to feel that making a chair, you can contribute. Maybe you're not changing the whole world, but you can contribute to a better world. So I think we are working on them, and I think we should have a consensus on positioning everything related to these SDGs.
I think what is very important here is the astonishment of the students when they really produce something and then they realize that actually, by the way the companies react to their production, they realize that they have done steps towards a more sustainable world. And this feeling of astonishment is something that they keep with them. I mean, I think it's something that is not small. It's not a small part of our education.
Mm. Astonishment is a nice word for that, yeah. Yeah.
May I, please?
Kenan, yes.
Thank you all. I mean, thank you for the great presentation. In terms of SDG, I would like to place in a comment because I speak from a position where we have kind of transitional society, recovering society, and all these things. And we have to remind our students every year, we are in SDG, in every segment of that. So please, let's try to make something cool that's around you because all those goals are applicable to your designs and you don't have to leave home. So you don't have to think about how to help undeveloped country because and then they kind of start understanding actually SDG because they live in the SDG target group. And that's kind of changed introduce another phase to their expectations from design and their position in design and in design industry and their relation to the outside world. So I think that's perspective that's useful for them, and maybe it's a little bit easier to kind of convey that message because they can see all those problems surrounding them. And maybe for the more developed countries, not that easy because you have kind of functional segments of society and people are not exposed to these type of problems. So I think that awareness about SDG still need to be pushed even with the generation of students in transitional societies such as Bosnia. And I think that that's okay. And we keep on doing that, reminding them because in a few years they reach the market that is completely different from the cool design market that they expect to find a place at. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's an important point. Yeah, I mean, my experience was when we were working for the Cumulus Green competition, and we went deeper into one of the SDGs, and you really go deeper and you look at the criteria and sub-criteria. Those are guiding principles actually to act actually sort of very precisely, and then you come up with a chair that you can do because this might be a response, a provocation, an articulation, a manifestation that responds to this very situation. And then that in the end also helps to share the insights that you have and the implications and the value with people from completely different countries, because at least the SDGs are known everywhere. Okay, so
yeah, but I see that as an advantage, not disadvantage.
Yeah.
Get me wrong.
No. Yeah. I'm just hesitating. If everybody's using the SDG, I'm asking why. But Laetitia, you want to bring up something?
Yeah, I think that we here in Cumulus, for example, we are in a group that have a high-level discussion and know very well about SDGs and so on. But our day-by-day reality here with businessmen, for example, they don't know about it. It's something that we could not believe, but we still need to change minds. We still need to tell them how important it is to take care with materials, the processes in the companies, in the industries. And that's so important to have young designers that could bring together these ideas, these inputs, and these new things. And we need to resonate this a lot. We still need to promote these ideas. We still need to use design cases from industries, as I tried to show you, because that's the way we used to talk with businessmen, for example, because they are in charge of these new products, these new packaging and everything. And they are still producing things that we could not believe, just packaging, just products, just more chairs, a lot of more chairs every year. And they don't care about materials. They don't care about these things. They are much more focused in what they are going to earn with these products. So when we have good design cases or good examples, that what we try to do, we keep showing them with talks, events and things that we do, trying to show them that they could change their mindset too. And that's why it's so important that we have designers and young designers with this mindset together. Because, for example, when I made my undergraduate in design, nobody talked about sustainable goals because it's not something that we were looking for, ecology or materials. That wasn't something that it was being taught in the schools. And that's why nowadays that's so important to discuss all of these with these students.
Okay, so I think, thank you for that. I think we agree on many points, so that's excellent. To me, there today, some more pieces in the puzzle sort of were showing up. And as I said in the beginning, it's a journey that we are going. And to just sort of frame it again, this works as part of Cumulus, and I can just invite you to look at Cumulus Connects and proceed a discussion or to join in. I think the next session like this one we will have in March, but we meet every last Thursday of a month, but not in December, for a more or less informal sort of meetup. And Teresa and I, we will sort of digest and prepare it a little bit in order to sort of build on what we have worked on today. And every sort of collaboration is more than welcome. And actually, as I said, I see more and more connections coming up. So from my side, once again, I want to thank the speakers. I want to thank you, Laetitia. I want to thank you, Lolita. I want to thank you, Annette. And I want to thank all the others in absence that already had to leave because we are 16 minutes behind schedule, but due to an interesting discussions. And it was good to see you, Teresa. Thank you.
And it was very inspiring. I am sorry for my mess up with UTC. But I hope to see you again and that you can join our meetings and our next global conversation also. And it was very inspiring.
It was. Sounds
Yeah.
like a nice time. So
thank you, Philip. Thank you, everybody, for being there. And I think we had some great conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lolita. Okay, have a nice day. Have a nice evening.
Yes, nice
Bye
night.
bye.
Good night. Bye.
Good health,
Bye.
everyone. Look after yourselves. Good health.
Bye.
Bye.